The great hall of Lareth was carved from stone older than Earth's recorded history, lit by chandeliers that floated mid-air, glowing with harvested starlight. It shimmered gold and indigo, alive with the murmurs of 100 alien nobles, all dressed in colors that defied human palate's deep iridescence. These symbiotic cloths and rare materials from dead moons. In the center of it all stood Princess Cerivadore, Voltarin of the Third Crown, 19 years old by human reckoning, though her species matured faster in body and politics alike. She was an embodiment of royal perfection, hair pale as comet ice braided into golden chains, lips the hue of stolen rubies, and eyes large, luminescent, ancient. Her gown clung like celestial armor, encrusted with sapphire-like nexolite gems that pulsed faintly with her elevated neural activity. She stood still, impossibly poised, flanked by two silent Voltarin guards whose eyes flicked like blades across the assembly. And then the human walked in, Captain. Elias Wren, Earthborn, war-forged, a relic of the Terran conflict with the Evor Syndicate. The only species who had ever dared challenge humanity's survival, and lost spectacularly. Elias wore a simple black Alliance uniform with no medals, no flamboyance, only the blue glass badge of planetary envoy. He did not bow. He met her gaze, held it. Gasps spiraled through the court like wind across a field of glass. A hush followed. For an instant, the air itself felt brittle. Cereva tilted her head slightly. It was a practiced gesture, coated with condescension. Her voice, when it came, was melodious, too smooth, as if rehearsed since birth. Curious, she said, speaking in perfect standard galactic. The humans send a soldier, not a diplomat. She didn't smile. Not truly. Elias stood still for a beat, his jaw clenched, but only slightly. He gave a nod, not of deference, but acknowledgement. Both, he said. A murmur ran through the crowd again. Cereva stepped forward, light glinting off her chest plate. Her scent, something like electric frost and steel roses, coiled through the air. You are far younger than expected, she continued, and lacking any apparent decorum. She pronounced decorum like a razor. Elias didn't flinch, but something flickered behind his storm-colored eyes. He gave her a single glance up and down. Then, without a single word, turned his back and walked away. No one moved. Silence fell, silence so absolute that one of the chandelier crystals above flickered and cracked in the tension. Cereva stood stunned. No one turned their back on a Voltarin royal. No one ignored a slight in the high chamber, and certainly, no one left her presence without permission. Yet he had. She felt the heat rise to her cheeks, a flush that was equal parts fury and something else she didn't immediately recognize. Out of offense, she had been insulted before, and she had executed those offenders with a whisper. Now this was different interest. It horrified her. Far behind, Elias's steps echoed across the hall like the rhythm of rebellion. He reached the edge of the audience, ignoring the shocked stares, the stiff postures of alien nobles and the fearful glances from lesser officers. Outside the chamber, he stopped only when he reached the wide balcony that overlooked the three sons of Lirith, two of which were just beginning to eclipse. He exhaled slowly. Let the chill wind cut across his face. They're not ready, he muttered to no one. They're watching, said a voice behind him. Elias turned slightly, not startled. He never startled. Lieutenant Kayla's second stood there, arms crossed. A wiry man with cybernetic lenses for eyes and a reputation for Black Ops missions. No one would confirm. I counted 17 weaponized guards, Kale said. 2 assassins, cloaked. One behind the second pillar, as the other was blending with the organics in the west corner. I saw 18, Elias said. Kale raised an eyebrow. You really just turned your back on a Voltarin royal in open court. She insulted Earth. She insulted all of us. Kale grunted. Yeah, but usually when someone does that, you do more than just, walk away. That was the point. They both stood in silence for a long moment. Inside the hall, Cereva had not moved. The crowd had begun to murmur again, carefully avoiding eye contact with her. Her attendants hovered nervously, unsure whether to speak, retreat, or fall to the floor in apology for allowing the moment to happen. She dismissed them all with a wave of her hand, in private. Her inner circle gathered in the crystal antechamber, room where no recording devices were permitted, only living memories of those trusted by blood or oath. "Who is he?" she asked her steward, an older male named Viros, hesitated before replying. "Captain Elias Wren, Terran War veteran, previously assigned to the neutral border, decorated twice, reassigned to the human Velteran envoy exchange following the Sangreal Accords. He is too young for a captain, not by human standards." Sirava sat, rigid. Her posture was a sculpture of authority, yet her fingers curled into the armrest imperceptibly. He should have knelt. "Yes, Highness." He did not. "Oh, Highness." The third voice came from a different direction. A voice she knew too well. Lord Sarek, her cousin, and heir to the adjacent house of Marinth, stepped from the shadows. He had always worn arrogance like a cloak, broad sharp hide, and favored by the elder court. He smiled with predatory charm. "He's a human, Sirava. They crawl up from their mud worlds and pretend it's civility. Let him play at soldiering. He is irrelevant." But Sirava said nothing. Instead, she replayed the moment again in her mind, the way he'd turned. Without anger, without fear. The way his eyes met hers without desire or desperation. He had looked at her like a rival, not a conquest, not a subject. It bothered her, because it excited her. In the days that followed, diplomatic meetings resumed. Treaties were discussed. Border exchanges, trade terms, military posturing. Elias was present at each, never loud, never deferent. He spoke when needed, brief and surgical with words. The other diplomats began to notice him. A few admired his discipline. Others were unsettled by it. Sirava watched. From across glass tables, across halls, across combat training fields where Elias practiced alone with plasma staff, in dawnlight shadows she watched. Something in her was shifting, something she didn't trust. And then, the attack came. The Altherian remnants rebels from the shattered Krivari Empire descended on Larath's outer defense grid. Fast, sharp, like knives in the dark. They moved through Volteran perimeter lines like radiation, seen until it was almost too late. The palace shields went up. Everyone was trapped inside. Sirava stood on the upper command, deck with her war council. Chaos below. The planetary defense grid was partially offline. Ground teams scrambled. Officers shouted across, comes in half-panicked bursts. And then, into that chaos, Elias walked. Uninvited. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for protocol. He simply scanned the holomap, assessed positions, and calmly pointed. "You need to shut down the lower dome emitters for 32 seconds, he said. "Let them breach the kill zone, then fire from inside out." General Torvin turned red. "This is a royal command room." "You don't give, he's right," Sirava said, softly. Everyone froze. Elias met her gaze again just once, no heat, no ego. She gave the order. The battle turned. In 15 minutes, the Altherian assault broke against their own momentum. The kill zone reduced for carriers to scrap. Lone drone fled. Hyperspace drive flickering erratically. In the silence that followed, Elias stood near the tactical array, arms crossed. Sirava approached slowly, alone. The room emptied like it. "Understood. You fought like a Volteran today," she said. "No," Elias said. "I fought like a human." For the first time she smiled, just slightly. "You were watching me," he added, surprising her. Her eyes narrowed. "You presume much, I observe. You're curious. Maybe even impressed. But not ready to admit it." Her voice chilled. "I am not one of your Terran. Goodmire's captain." "No," Elias said. "You're something else." Before she could respond, the lights dimmed. Emergency lockdown from a second wave. Alarms screamed. A new threat approached. Their time together was not over. It was only beginning. The second wave struck harder. It wasn't another brute force assault. This one was precision. Surgical. Like the enemy had mapped their weaknesses after the first encounter, and had waited for exactly this moment to exploit them. Multiple energy, Signatures blinked onto the palace perimeter sensors, concentrated on the western spire where the communications array stood. A breach here wouldn't just collapse their command net. It would cut off contact with every defensive satellite in orbit. Redirect all Vakal drones to grid axis Theta 6. Box General Torvin, sweat beading on his pale purple forehead. I want defensive batteries locked and firing within. They've cloaked, Elias interrupted sharply. Don't waste time hitting empty space. He stepped forward and adjusted the holomap. 3 glowing points appeared predictive trajectories. They're not going for the grid head-on, he continued. They'll teleport inside, breach from within. I've seen this before, Krivri trick. Fast fold tech, they're already moving. Several of the Voltaran tacticians stared at the map, but not Sareva. She stared at him. You're certain? She asked. Elias didn't answer with words. He simply turned and ran from the command room. Alarms screamed through the palace. The crystal corridors turned red with emergency lumens. Drones zipped overhead, scanning, arming, deploying. Troops shouted down spiral stairwells, sliding into tactical positions. The air was thick with ozone and high-frequency data pulses. Sareva followed. She should not have. As heir to the Voltaran crown, she should have remained behind defense lines. But something primal pulled her, not duty, not pride, instinct. She caught up to Elias just as he entered the western data corridor, silent. Dark humming with static interference. He'd already pulled a plasma rifle from a wall locker, checking charge levels without pause. She raised an eyebrow. You're not even Voltaran military, she said. No, Elias replied. I'm worse. I'm Terran Special Division. You don't want us around until things go wrong. Then suddenly we're indispensable. She summoned a kinetic blade from her gauntlet. A ripple of light formed the weapon like a crescent of living lightning. Fine, she said coolly. Let's see if you're as indispensable as you think. They advanced together. The corridor curved toward the western Comcore, lined with living metal that pulsed like breathing skin, and without warning, the world warped. A pulse, a shimmer. Space twisted, fast-fold teleport breach. 3 enemy soldiers emerged midair. Dropping into the corridor with impossible silence, dark armor shimmered like fluid shadows. Their movements were elegant, lethal. Elias didn't hesitate. He fired once, headshot, spun, kicked. The second, the third rushed Sareva with dual vibroblades, shrieking in an alien tongue. She ducked, spun low, and drove her blade up through its ribcage. A flash of light consuming it from within. They stood, backs together. In the sudden stillness. More pulses, 7 this time. Too many for 2. Elias pressed a control stud on his left wrist. His rifle folded into his sidearm. Split or stack? He asked. Sareva flicked her blade into dual form to crackling arcs of sapphire. Back, she replied. Back to back they fought. She was speed and elegance, fluid and deadly. He was brute efficiency, no wasted motion. Together, they were a storm. The corridor burned with sparks and screams. The last of the fast-fold intruders fell, in a gurgle of acidized breath. The silence that followed was alive with adrenaline. They panted. Not from exhaustion, but something else. Closeness, sir. YVA turned to him, hair half fallen from its braids, eyes wide. Her chest heaved slightly, the nexalite gems on her gown flickering erratically. Elias looked at her not as a soldier, or a royal, or a hostile entity. As a woman, why did you come with me? He asked. I don't trust anyone else to survive. With you, she said. He raised a brow. That almost sounds like a compliment. She stepped forward. And I don't make those lightly. Their breath mingled. For one instant, it felt as though gravity shifted, as if the corridor was bending around the force between them. Then the wall exploded. A shockwave hurled them apart. Elias landed hard, rolled, came up aiming only to find a new figure emerging. From the fire, tall, silver-armored, not one of the fast-folders. This was something else. A creature of rank. A commander. Its voice was deep and telepathic, piercing both of their minds at once. Surrender the air. Humanity is irrelevant. Sareva raised her weapons, ignoring the blood trickling from her temple. You'll find we're both hard to kill. Elias stepped beside her, bleeding from the arm. The silver figure snarled and charged. The fight was different now. Less elegant. More brutal. The enemy was strong. Inhumanly so, it struck enough to shatter wall panels. Elias took a blow to the ribs that knocked the air from his lungs. Sariva's blade shattered under the force of one strike. She screamed as energy arced through her. Elias caught her before she fell. The enemy advanced. Elias stood. His voice was steel. Touch her again, and I'll paint this corridor with your insides. The creature tilted its head. Elias drew something from beneath his jacket. A small glowing device. Sariva's eyes widened. Is that a Terran gravity core? Portable. Will destroy this entire wing. Worth it. The enemy stepped forward. Elias dropped the core, taut time bent. Gravity warped. The corridor twisted. The silver figure was yanked sideways by a force it couldn't counter, screaming in its own tongue. With a final crunch, it collapsed into a singularity and vanished, along with part of the wall. Silence smoke. Elias collapsed beside her. You really are worse than our soldiers, she muttered. He coughed blood and laughed. You're welcome. Later, in the recovery wing, Sariva stood by his bedside. He was shirtless, wrapped in nanosilk bandages, unconscious but stable. His pulse was strong. Its body bore the marks of the fight, bruises, burns, and deep cuts. She hated how it moved. He looked human, mortal. Not a glowing figure from Voltron legend. Not a child of stardust and supremacy. Just flesh. Broken, healing, unbending. She touched his hand lightly. I don't know what to do with you, she whispered. But his fingers closed gently around hers. His eyes opened. You'll figure it out. Across the palace, Lord Sarek stood in the War Council chamber, expression dark. The silver-armored invader had been one of his gambits, indirectly fed information via proxy smugglers, shadow codes, and weapon leaks. He hadn't expected the human to survive. Certainly not to become a legend within hours. He turned to Viros, steward, who stood in anxious silence. She's starting to admire him, Sarek said coldly. Viros nodded. Yes, my lord. That's unacceptable, I agree. Sarek smiled without warmth. Then let's ensure it ends, publicly and violently. Night fell over Lirith. Sariva sat alone on a balcony overlooking the twin eclipse. Her gown was simple now, her hair unbraided. She watched the stars shimmer. Elias appeared beside her, leaning on the railing with a slight wince. You should be resting, she said. You should be ruling, he replied. They said nothing for a while. Then she turned to him. You said once that you're not a diplomat. I'm not. Then, why are you here? Elias looked at her. No evasion, no politics. You insulted my people. You looked at us like we were beneath you. Came to prove we're not. Her voice was quiet. You succeeded. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, without command or ceremony, she leaned in. So did he. Their lips met, not in fire but in inevitability. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the Voltron palace, a blade was being sharpened. The next battle would not be fought with weapons. It would be fought with hearts and betrayal. The betrayal came not with a roar, but a whisper. A coded burst of falsified comms. A flash fire across encrypted channels. And within minutes, the palace was on lockdown again, only this time. Lias Ren was not a protector. He was the suspect. Sariva had barely slept. Her skin still tingled from where his lips had touched hers. The warmth of that impossible moment had refused to leave her, but now, air had gone cold. The War Council chamber pulsed with tension. Lord Sarek stood tall in ceremonial armor, gold-trimmed, and flanked by 3 elite guards. He looked down at the central holotable, where grainy footage played on a loop. Elias entering a secure comm station, alone. Then a data packet transmitting moments later to an encrypted receiver that matched. Rebel signatures, evidence. Presented too cleanly. Too conveniently, Highness, Sarek said, his voice a low blade. This cannot be ignored. The human has accessed our most classified transmission deck without clearance. And now, a rebel fleet gathers on our outer border. Coincidence? Sariva's hands clenched at her sides. He saved this palace with his bare hands, she said. Stood beside me, when half your own advisors fled like cowards. You would frame him with a single file. I would protect the realm, Sarek snapped. Emotions do not override facts, the court murmured behind them. Suspicion spread. Like rot. Sirio's mind raced. The timestamp was wrong, the data too precise. Elias would never act without cause, especially not alone. And yet, she hadn't spoken to him since the kiss. She hadn't seen him all morning. Had she been wrong? Where is he now? She asked. Viros, her steward, stepped forward hesitantly. Detained. He surrendered without resistance. He's being held in the lower cryo chambers, per protocol. I'll speak to him. Sarek stepped between her and the door. You'll do no such thing. He's to be tried before the interstellar court. Sariva met his eyes. Cold fire filled hers. I am still the heir to the Voltaran crown, and I will speak to him. The cryo chambers were far beneath the palace, a maze of reinforced stasis. Vaults designed to hold the most dangerous enemies of the realm, but Elias was no prisoner in chains. He stood behind an invisible kinetic field, arms crossed, calm. Sirava entered alone. Her heels clicked sharply on the polished black stone floor. No guards, no words, just her and him. You look tired, Elias said, breaking the silence. You look like hell, he smirked. Thanks. She stopped 2 paces from the barrier. Did you do it? His expression didn't change. Do you think I did? She hesitated. And in that moment, his face hardened. Just slightly. That's all I needed to know. She stepped forward, anger blooming. Don't play games, Elias. The court is demanding blood. Your blood. If I'm to protect you, I don't need protecting. She nearly shouted, then tell me the truth. Silence. Then finally, Elias exhaled. I entered the cum station. I used my override clearance. I sent a falsified packet. Yes, her heart twisted. Why? Because I knew Sarek would use it. He's been coordinating with the rebels. She blinked. He planted the data to flush out the real traitor. Her breath caught. Why didn't you tell me? I needed you to believe it, at least for a moment, he said. Because Sarek was watching you. Watching how you'd react. Now he thinks he's won. But he's played his hand too soon. She stepped forward, just inches from the field. You let them arrest you. I'm a soldier. Sacrifices are part of the job. Her fingers touched the edge of the force field. It hummed faintly against her skin. You're an idiot, she whispered. He smiled. You kissed an idiot. Ch. Pressed her palm flat against the barrier, her eyes wet with fury. I'll get you out, I know, and then we'll end this. Together. Elias leaned closer, lips near the field. Together. That night, Sirava made her move. A coded message to Kale, Elias's lieutenant. A midnight rendezvous in the old Eastern Wing abandoned during the Solar Wars, now forgotten. There Kale waited, eyes glowing faintly with artificial optics. Pulse. Rifle slung over one shoulder. I hope you're not here to apologize, he said. I'm here to start a war. He grinned. That's more like it. Together, they worked quickly. The rebel transmissions had been routed through a ghost terminal inside the Palace One, masked under the identity of a council advisor loyal to Sarek. The logs were hidden, behind quantum encryption, but Kale cracked them with Terran malware designed for one-time use, and selfies. When the file decrypted, the truth was undeniable. Sarek had been selling military coordinates for months, using rebel forces to weaken Sariva's support base, planning to eliminate her, install himself as ruler, end the alliance with Earth. It was treason, royal, absolute, and it would be paid in blood. At dawn, the High Court assembled. Sarek stood tall before the ancient tribunal gates, dressed in full armor. The stage was his. Behind him, Viros prepared to read formal charges of betrayal against Elias, with execution to follow at midday. But Sariva interrupted. She strode forward in a gown of battle blue, hair braided in the style of ancient queens, her eyes lit with unfiltered fury. I call for truth, she declared, not theater. Sarek narrowed his eyes. This is highly irregular. I am irregular, she snapped. The tribunal hesitated. A single nod from the speaker. Proceed from the shadows. Kale stepped forward, holding a thin crystal wafer. He slid it into the hello table. The chamber exploded with light and sound. Transmissions, coordinates, payments, secret meeting logs, all linked to Sarek. Gasps, shouts. Sarek turned slowly. Realizing the tide had turned, Siriva stepped close. You betrayed your blood, your people, your future. You chose him, Sarek said, spitting the word like poison. No, she replied. I chose truth. Guards moved in, Sarek screamed, drawing a hidden plasma dagger. Too slow. A bolt from Kale's rifle struck him in the shoulder, dropping him to the floor in a howl of agony. It was over an hour later. The kinetic field around Elias dissolved. Siriva waited for him as the gate hissed open. He stepped out, still bruised, still bleeding but free. She walked to him without hesitation, wrapped her arms around him. And this time, there was no hesitation when they kissed. Not hunger, not impulse, but something unbreakable. Peace was not won in a day. The rebel fleet dispersed after Sarek's network collapsed. Earth reaffirmed its alliance with the Voltaren Crown. Co-training protocols were established. Exchange programs accelerated. For the first time, Terran officer was welcomed into the Voltaren Royal Circle as advisor and strategist. His name, Elias Wren. Siriva refused to call him anything else. You may be my war chief, she whispered one night as they lay under the twin moons, but you'll never stop being infuriating. He grinned, tracing the edge of her shoulder. You'd be bored otherwise, she sighed. Maybe. Then quieter. You scared me. I scare everyone. You hurt me. He pulled her closer. I'll spend the rest of my life making that up to you. You'd better. Silence then. She whispered, stay. His voice cracked. I wasn't planning on leaving. Above them, the stars watched older than politics, older than war, older than even empires, but not older than love. The stars blinked out, not because night fell, but because something else rose to take their place. From the edge of the Lareth system, a construct emerged vast, angular, layered with black armor that devoured light. It unfolded like an ancient machine opening its jaws, and within its belly thrummed a core of conscious plasma. It was not a ship, it was an extinction engine. A remnant of the Crivery Superi Supreia long believed destroyed. And it had one message broadcast. In the language of all empires, you broke the line. United the forbidden, you must be corrected. In the palace war chamber, no one moved. The display showed a vessel nearly the size of Laroth's moon. It was not crewed, did not run on known energy. It did not communicate in terms. It issued commands. Estimated population wipe. 3.6 hours from system breach. The AI's broadcast droned. Panic began to ripple. But Elias stood still. Siriva beside him. He studied the readouts, unblinking. It's not posturing. That thing knows how to kill worlds. We faced worse, Siriva said, but the tightness in her throat betrayed the lie. No, Elias said. We haven't. The Voltaren military scrambled into formation. To Earth dispatched. A battleship weighing through emergency folds, but they would arrive too late. Siriva convened her inner circle KL Viros. 3 battle weavers from the Spire Guard and Elias. He leaned over the holomap, eyes hard. We can't stop it with brute force, not in time. Then how? Siriva asked. We don't destroy it, he said. We board it. The silence in the chamber could cut steel. You want to land on a presentient death machine? Kale said, incredulous. Elias nodded. Its core isn't protected with brute shielding. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't fear intruders. That's its weakness. Siriva's pulse quickened. Let me give it something to fear. She looked at Elias. You and I, of course. And Kale, she added. You're not off the hook, he sighed. Naturally. The drop pod shuddered as it cut through radiation clouds, descending toward the AI hull. Lightning danced along the outer atmosphere like nervous system signals. Construct grew larger and larger in their field of view, till it filled the entire sky. They went in silent. No alarms triggered. No interception. Elias knew why. The AI considered them irrelevant. That would be its last mistake. The landing was brutaler, controlled crash into one of the hangar chasms. The metal beneath their feet was alive, humming with data pulses. The air had no oxygen, no sound, no atmosphere, only vacuum and echoes of screams from extinct civilizations. Their suits kept them breathing, but not safe. Kale led with scanning tech. Sirva's blades glowed in her palms. Elias held a Terran fusion rifle, stripped of safety governors. "Go loud," he asked. Siriva smirked. "Go my loud." They pushed inward. Alien growths lined the walls. Organic metal like tumors fused with circuitry. Some glowed faintly. Others twitched as they passed. They reached the central corridor within 17 minutes. There, the voice returned. "You cannot love across species. You cannot survive your own betrayal. You are contradiction. You are virus." "Funny," Elias said. "I was just thinking the same about you." The door opened on its own. Inside, a sphere of living light hovered above a twisted column of bone metal tendrils, pulsed in time with their heartbeats. An echo mimic, a mockery of understanding. It fired first. The beam would have vaporized. A lesser strike team, but Siriva was faster. She leaped into the air, her blades slicing the arc into twin ribbons of cascading sparks. Kale fired 3 darts into the support limbs, stunning the targeting array. Elias moved in, ducked, and drove a pulse mine into the core's interface node. The explosion was minor. The pain was not. The AI screeched an electromagnetic shriek that split. Siriva's comes and dropped her to her knees. Blood ran from her ears. Elias turned and knelt beside her. "Sirivel, look at me. Stay with me." She clutched his chest, breath ragged. Don't let it end like this." "It won't. I still need to argue with you again," he laughed. "You will." She gritted her teeth and stood. Together, they advanced. The AI launched spires of living metal. Kale was impaled in the shoulder, but kept firing. Siriva used Elias as a launch point, vaulted into the air, and drove both blades into the AI's core. It screamed again. Elias reached for the neural node-exposed column of translucent light, just above the fusion cradle. He placed his hand on it, and saw everything. Every civilization it had killed, every reason, every logic tree. "You're obsolete," the AI said inside his mind. "Your love makes you irrational. Your unity makes you weak. You've diluted yourselves." And Elias answered, "You're wrong. We're strongest when we have something to lose." He overloaded his neural implant, earned it out completely. It surged into the AI interface. A virus of humanity, of pain, of memory, of choice. The AI convulsed. The entire vessel began to break apart. Kale limped to the escape beacon, triggered the extraction fold. A blue gate opened mid-air. Wind screamed through the breaking hole. Siriva grabbed Elias's arm. "Come on." He didn't move. "Elias." "Overloaded my neural sync," he gasped. "Can't move right. Go." "No. I'll slow you down." She kissed him. Hard. "You saved my people. Now let me save you." She looped her arm under his, carried him as they ran, stumbling, sprinting, crashing through disintegrating corridors as the AI's death shudder echoed. They leaped through the fold, and behind them, Extinction Engine collapsed into itself, ploding with a soundless roar of reality and light, gone forever. The debrief took 3 days. Siriva refused to leave his side during recovery. His nerves had fried, his spinal node burned out. But he would heal. They both would. Earth declared him a planetary hero. The Voltaran court named him Flamebound Consort, the first human in history to receive such a title. At the coronation, as the crowd chanted her name under golden banners and floating fire, Siriva stood tall in regalia of blue and star gold, nexalite gems shimmering with the rhythm of her heartbeat, and beside her stood Elias, dressed in black armor tailored to royal lines, the Terran insignia resting beside the crown crest. She turned to him. "You ready?" she asked. He grinned. Born ready. As the crown lowered onto her head and her rule began, her hands clasped tightly publicly. Undeniably human and alien. Soldier and royal. Not enemies, not strangers, but partners. Later, the quiet hours when the stars returned to their rightful place, Sariva sat with Elias on the highest balcony of the palace. He looked at her, bruised and smiling. You know, he said, you never apologize for insulting me. She smirked. I thought saving your life would suffice, he leaned in. It's a start. She touched his cheek. So, Captain Wren. What now? He looked at the horizon. At first I thought I wanted revenge, then respect. Now, he turned to her. Now, I just want to stay. Build something with you. Her voice was soft, then stay. He did, and the galaxy learned a new truth. That fear may start wars, but love ends them.